All right. So when I was like a late teen into my early 20s, it was a weird part of my life. Like, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I was confused. You know, working for minimum wage was terrible. Um, I, yeah, I was a little lost when I was 19. When I graduated, like, I was lost. I look back and I'm like, wow. I ended up moving in with a roommate uh, at 19, and then in my 20s, I was just working like retail, and we started partying a lot. It was like beer pong parties, hot tub, and like that was as a teenager. I had fun. I had LAN parties. We partied as kids. I drank, played a lot of video games. I skateboarded a lot. It was great, but then I graduated, and like a lot of my best friends were a year ahead of me, so they were all off, doing adult things a year or two before me. And that really hit me. Like, that was depressing. Um, and then I had to move with my father right as I graduated in with his wife at the time, and that was like further out. That was away from my hometown. So it was almost like a year where like I was looking for a job, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was playing World of Warcraft way too much. This is a long time ago. I was lost, man. And then moved in with my roommate and worked retail, and then I started partying a lot. Like, it was like every weekend, even during the week sometimes, beer pong. It was fun. I had great times. But in this period, after I graduated, like, life didn't really mean anything to me. Like, I had no desires, no ambitions. I just didn't care. I just always thought, like, we're just a bunch of ants on a rock, and, like, everything's meaningless, We live and then we die. That was, like, my viewpoint. And I remember after living with this roommate, I moved back to my hometown, and I went through a breakup and, like, a severe depression for, like, a year. I was working third shift at another place, retail, crap job. And I was, like, I was just depressed. I was sleeping all the time, and I thought I lost, someone very important to me, relationship wise. 2 years, and it was like my longest relationship, and it crushed me. And nothing has crushed me like that since, because it built a foundation. I learned from it, like my first super heartbreak, if you will. But man, I went through some rough times. It's weird because this person came back into my life later, and then it was like I didn't even care. It was done. But I went through all that pain for, I want to say, nothing over the person, but in reality, it made me stronger. I've not went through this since, and this was like many, many years ago. But I was just working third shift and sleeping all day, and like my drinking wasn't too crazy then. But then I started like self-soothing alone on the weekend. I'd start drinking alone. That's when it was always at parties, house parties and stuff. I started drinking by myself, which is not a good habit to have. And there's like a weird like misery element with that. And I knew when I was doing it, it was bad, but it was just the place I was in. I started turning to alcohol outside of like social like situations and stuff like that. And I remember my buddy, I didn't even have my license like when I was a late teen. And I remember him driving me around like this period of time when I started partying and, was in that relationship. I was enjoying life, whatever. But after that, it was like 2 years of heck. And then my late teenhood, it was heck. And he was driving me around. He's like, don't you want to like, have a car and drive around and enjoy the sun and the wind and, have a family and all. He was like talking about all these ambitious things. And he's a very ambitious friend, very successful, awesome dude. I'd do anything for him, even though I barely see him because he has a whole family. He's very busy. He runs a side business. He works 50, 60, whatever, how many hours a week. Awesome guy. He may not know it, but I'd do anything for him. Some of my close friends. But he was talking about this stuff when we were young, And I was just like, I don't care. Like, there's no meaning to any of this. Like, why? Who cares? We all die. Like, it was a very negative, pessimistic viewpoint. And that's how I was, you know, in my late teens when I graduated, then after this breakup. And then it was like, I started working labor. So I started getting some more money. And the drinking was just every weekend still. And I think the drinking alone and the drinking on the weekends, it was like a side effect of my viewpoint earlier on. And if you're in that viewpoint, you can get out of it. It's very hard. I mean, it lasted years. And like now I look at things differently. Like instead of leveling up in a game, I'm doing that in real life. It took for me to be in my 30s to really do it. But my viewpoint changed. Now, what he was saying to me, and I didn't hear him at the time, I look back on it and I'm like, I vibe with that now. And I wish I would have vibed with that then. I'd be much further in life, which I've talked about in the past. And I didn't care. And when someone's in that depressive mindset, it's like talking, you're sort of wasting your words until they're ready, right? Some people don't get out of it. I know that. But I look back and it's like, I'm glad I went through it because it makes me stronger today. All the hardships, you got to use them as a foundation for you. You can't let them crush you. Use them as a foundation. And I look at life differently. I'm trying to level up in life. I'm trying to progress and make new achievements. When before I just didn't care, I was lost. And it's a shame. I wish I had this mentality back then because I could be way further. But would I be the same person? I have a much harder mentality, a much harder foundation now. Don't ever regret the hardships you go through. Let them, they build your character if you let them. You don't let them destroy you, right? Now, if you're going through drastically bad things, that's a whole different story. You know what I mean? But yeah, I thought about how just everything was meaningless. I get sad thinking about that time of my life and where I was. I remember just laying in bed all day because I went through the breakup and just not knowing. Well, when I first moved back to my hometown, we weren't broken up yet, but it was like, man, it was like misery, you know? And now I don't go to that place no more. Like I really can't, but man, it was bad. And I'm pretty sure my friends saw it. Everyone saw it. But that's where I think alcohol really came in, drinking by myself. And I'm sure people can relate to that. I remember like being in my young 20s, like having a bottle, starting to drink by myself. I'm like, I know this is bad. I've heard this is bad. You shouldn't be drinking alone like this. And it became habitual. You start to fall in love with that, just being alone. I was still going to house parties, down to the bar. I'd drink, you know, at home and then go out. I was still social, but there were nights I didn't. And it was like I said, there's a part of you thriving in that misery. You get really comfortable getting attached to that by yourself. It's not a good thing. And that really ramped up. Like, I was never an everyday drinker because of the hangovers, thank God. But I remember when I wasn't driving, just walking a few miles to get liquor. I've done it, you know, and then got blasted on the weekends. And it's a very depressing thing, you know. But I remember some people back then, like I said, people being positive and ambitious around you, you just don't care. You're like, whatever. It's useless. Like, why? But now it's not like that for me. Like, I'm hitting these milestones that you all know. If you watch my videos, you know, with like quitting nicotine, losing weight, doing good with finances, investing, collecting, and just trying to better myself. Like, man, if you're in your young 20s, you're in such a good spot to get yourself straight. And it's better late than never if you're in your 30s or 40s. It really is. You can do it at any age. But if you're young and you're feeling lost, like you can, man, like I know 18-year-olds that I work with that are like complaining about life. And I'm like, man, you have so much time. You're so young. You could smoke me in life and I wouldn't even be mad about it. But a lot of these people, they won't. They'll blow money. They'll have nothing when they're older. But if they wisen up early enough, man, they could really set up a crazy future for themselves. Like how I want to be in my 40s is where they could be in their 30s, right? They could get there earlier, and I hope people do. But people end up being 50, 60, and they're stuck in the rut still. But yeah, I was just thinking about that. That mentality is so dangerous. And I remember being in it, and it's just, I've changed. Thank God. I'm so different with things now. But that was years, man. My late teens. Then I got it better. Then the breakup put me right back into it. And that's when I need to make a video on drinking alone, because I know it's talked about a lot. And I know a lot of people do it, you know. A lot of people know it's not good, but a lot of people do it, and it needs to be discussed too. But man, you fall in love with it, you know. And there's a lot of repercussions that come with it. You're sending messages out, you're being an idiot, you're getting altercations online or whatever, blah, 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 blah. You're just sitting there, you waste 12, 15 hours of your life. Literally, you just waste it away. Then the hangover turns into 2 days, 3, you know, you're wasting so much time. But that's neither here nor there. This video's going on. But, yeah. I just wanted, I hope some people can relate to it. If they're in that spot or they gotten out of it, you know, you can really switch your mindset. It doesn't happen overnight. It took me to really dedicate to labor. And the thing is too, when I was 29, 30, I went into another depression for a year. You know, that was 5, 6 years ago. I gained a bunch of weight again. I was down to 165. I went up to 280, 290. And I lost it again. I fluctuated weight so much. I was never over 225 before though. But yeah, so it came back again a bit. And that was like a horrible relationship I went through. My finances got sucked dry. I'll talk more about that kind of stuff down the line. But yeah, so it came back a bit, but I jumped back on and I got back up, right? I was unemployed. My savings got drained, but I came back from that. And it's sort of cool to know I got back up. But no matter where you're at in life, you can always get knocked down. You can always get railroaded, man. Just boom. Life can knock you down. It's about how you get up that matters. So yeah, when I was 19, terrible, got out of it a bit. 22, terrible, got out of it. But the drinking lasted into my 30s, right? That was a perpetual side effect of all this. The mindset, the breakup, starting to drink alone. It was, yeah. It sucks when you feel lost. Like a lot of these kids, if they don't go off to college, trade school, or if they don't start working right away and they're just living at home, not working, like sort of like living off their parents into their 20s, and they're lost, and then they don't know how to work a full-time job. I've been there, you know. I worked in high school and I worked right after high school, but some of these kids don't work in high school and then they don't work into their 20s. They don't know how to hold a full-time job. Like going from sitting in school to like doing something for 40 to 60 hours a week for money, it's a drastic change. And into my young 20s, I got numb to it and I did it, you know. But for some people, it's like they can't do it or they can't commit to it. So they're going from job to job, or they're just lost, man. I feel for them. But labor was sort of my outlet. I got experience in many different things: valve tech, metal fab. I could still learn weld a bit. I could go to. I should have went to a trade school, but I didn't. But I'm doing fine. There's always education and stuff out there. There's always decent paying labor jobs you can get experience in and make money. Labor was my outlet. So I'm glad I got into it. It was scary at first because it's not easy work. I'm just used to it. And at first it's like, man, this sucks. But you adapt. We're very adaptable beings. And this video is getting too long. But yeah, that's all the video is about. Like, I can't believe how meaningless everything was. It really was. And I'll always remember my buddy saying this stuff to me. And it's like, man, I wish I would have just gotten to gear then. but it's better late than never.